Hello there. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte filling in for Areva Martin. And you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. If my voice sounds a little familiar, it's probably because you might recognize me from A More Perfect Union. It's can be heard on the 10s on KBLA Talk 1580. That's 10 a.m. Pacific time and also 10 p.m. Pacific time. A More Perfect Union, it is our Sunday show. It's our public affairs show where we get to center the voices of some of the change makers among us, the folks in the arena doing the heavy lifting on the issues that are important to us. Please stay in touch. I'll be in touch, so you stay in touch. You can follow me at Dr. Nicordelai, that's DrNiiQuartelai. You can follow me at Dr. Nicordelai. And for your viewing pleasure these days, you can check me out weekdays on Fox Soul's Black Report at 6 p.m. Eastern and 3 p.m. Pacific. And be sure to download that Fox Soul app to never ever miss an episode of that as well. I am so delighted to welcome our guest this hour. But before we get to him, I want to go through some of today's headlines, starting with your favorite governor, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He previewed more of his 2024 pitch Monday night with a new emphasis on the next president's ability to push the Supreme Court further to the right. Can you believe that? Calling for new justices in the mold of Clarence Thomas and improvements to others such as Chief Justice John Roberts, a Republican appointee who has sometimes sided with the court's liberal wing. Also in DeSantis news, the Florida governor will announce he is running for president during a discussion with Twitter CEO Elon Musk. This is according to three sources familiar with the plans. Musk and DeSantis will host an event on Twitter Spaces, the site's platform for audio chats, on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. It'll be moderated by David Sachs, a tech entrepreneur who is a Musk confidant and DeSantis supporter. In Washington, a lawyer for Republican donor Harlan Crow has told the Senate Judiciary Democrats that the billionaire businessman, he will not provide them with the information about his relationship with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. I wonder why. And former President Donald Trump made a virtual appearance in New York criminal court on Tuesday for the first time since pleading not guilty last month to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. A stern-looking Trump appeared before Judge Juan Merchan on video to hear the terms of a protective order barring him from publicly disclosing evidence, which the Manhattan District Attorney's Office will be turning over to the lawyers in the hush money payments. And another story that just came to my attention this hour features Ice Cube, who's pushing back against AI-generated music. The discourse around artificial intelligence and its growing association with music, it grows daily. And Ice Cube does not like how AI has been used so far, calling the act demonic. Cube had harsh words about the bubbling phenomenon of AI being used to create vocals of singers and rappers on songs they've never recorded. Last month, a song called Heart on My Sleeve featuring The Weeknd and an AI-generated vocal from Drake went viral. This is according to NPR. Cube stated during an appearance on Full Send podcast that he feels AI is doing more harm than good. We're going to get the fresh take of our guest, A. Prince Albert III. He's a social entrepreneur and a tech and policy expert, particularly when it comes to issues related to civil and human rights. We are delighted to welcome you to Areva Martin in real time, Prince.
Thank you, Dr. Corte, for being here. Thanks.
Well, thank you for being here. More with you, and we're going to dig more into those headlines when we come forward. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580. You're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
There are millions of boys and girls who are young, gifted, and black.
I'm young, gifted,
With
and
a
black.
golden tag. And that's a fact.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time. I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, filling in for Areva. Glad to do it. And we're joined by A. Prince Albert III. He's a social entrepreneur. He's also a tech and policy expert steeped in issues related to civil and human rights. Welcome to Areva Martin in real time, Prince.
Glad to be here, Dr. Corte.
So, let's get into it. Let's start with the Ice Cube headline. He is probably, one of the most notable musicians that is very publicly sort of pushing back against AI-generated music. Before the break, we had mentioned that Cube had some harsh words about the bubbling phenomenon of AI being used to create vocals of singers and rappers on songs they've never recorded. And he's went as far to say that he feels that AI is doing more harm than good, and has really threatened to take people to the mat if they try to use his vocals and use his music without his consent. Is his bark bigger than his bite? Is there really much that he can do at this juncture in the development of AI technology?
Unfortunately, there isn't much that he or other artists can do right now. But the sentiment of artists, right, the fact that they are being replaced by automated technologies, is a real sentiment, and something that, we expect art to be made by humans, right? And we expect machines to augment art, not to replace artists. So I will say that the sentiment is felt and understood, but really, the threat of AI and how it's interfacing with the copyright system, even the Copyright Office itself, kind of being a bit ambiguous about where it will fall on AI generated text that's copyrighted and things like that is really isn't known. I will say, though, it seems that this fear of AI is a bit premature, and I think the fear of it replacing people is really kind of a little premature right now. For example, we had the Drake song featuring The Weeknd about a little over a month ago. That song, in fact, was taken down for issues of plagiarism. In fact, it actually plagiarized some unreleased songs from Drake and interpolated a bit in the middle. But it was more plagiarism than we first thought about 6-8 weeks ago. And so really, it kind of shows that the AI isn't there yet. It can't wholesale replace, artists and artistry totally. It really has to draw on existing things and kind of fill in the gaps and copy. So the art, it isn't quite there yet, but it will not be long until future iterations of it will be there, probably in the next few months.
There was a study that caught my attention. The headline was "Robots Became Racist After AI Training Always Chose Black Faces as Criminals." The results of this new study are thought to be the first to demonstrate that robots programmed with an artificial intelligence algorithm exhibited gender and racial bias favoring men over women, white people over people of color, and making assumptions about people's jobs based solely on their appearance. This is according to reports by Hub, the News Center of Johns Hopkins University, and the Washington Post. The study found that when the specially designed robots were entrusted with placing the criminal into a box, they kept selecting the block with a black man's face. And so you're right, AI technology is still in development. It's still relatively new compared to other technologies, but there is a growing body of research that suggests that this technology is not immune to some of the bias that we as human beings witness and experience, no?
That's exactly right. I mean, it really is. You think of chatbots like ChatGPT, they're really just emitting human-like responses that it's responding to prompts that it's being given, right? It's taking a survey of what's out there and really giving it back. So, for instance, with criminal justice data, something which I've studied a lot of with AI, it really is bad inputs in, bad outputs out, right? Really thinking about the history and longevity of racism and intolerance in our societies. It's no surprise that it will kind of spit out those responses. But the real question is, what will be kind of some of the differentiating and limiting factors that will be built in machines to try to kind of stave off or kind of filter out bias, racism, intolerance? And we aren't there. So it really takes intentional programming, intentional building of tools and refining of AI tools to screen and filter those responses out. And then it's going to take an ongoing process to really assess the outputs so that the outputs do comport with what a majority of people really do believe are fair results, unbiased results. And even that is still amorphous. So there really is a lot of work to go before we can wholesale really rely on AI to kind of do some of that people filtering work.
Mm-hmm. And we know that tens of millions of jobs could be automated by generative artificial intelligence. The makers of new technologies are looking to the government to step in. So should our listeners and streamers, should they hold their breath? Do you think the government is ready to sort of step in and begin regulating these AI technologies, or can we just look to the debate around Section 230 and look at how long that conversation has continued without any significant federal legislation to reform the way that social media platforms govern themselves when it comes to content that crosses the line between free speech to hate speech?
I want to be a bit generous to the courts and the legislatures, actually, which is usually not the role that I play in the ecosystem. But really, they're weighing the same kinds of balances that one weighed, in 1996 at the dawn of the internet, right? They're weighing, do we let creators and entrepreneurs really just release these amazing tools into the wild and see what they get, right? The best training data to train a tool is really the real world, right? Because it is what people will encounter. It is what is going to kind of put out the most, human outputs. However, doing that, right, we look at our world, it is full of racism. It is full of hate speech, increasingly so. In fact, there are AI tools that are actually showing us more hate speech and kind of radicalizing us and desensitizing us to hate and to intolerance and to violence. So this really is difficult. What Congress and regulators are weighing is, do we allow entrepreneurs to release these tools so they can really learn the best, most human outputs, that could be useful potentially in the future? Or do we limit them? Do we stop their ability to learn real world? And do we, how do we control them? Control their uses, control, where they're used and how they're used. Do we audit the training data that's used on them and give them kind of a very fake, but a faux kind of contrived sense of equilibrium or equality in the training data that probably might change outputs and help change hearts and minds as well? It really is a hard balance, but I do think caution is necessary. I think the ways in which these tools are being advertised to people matters, right? It should not be replacing people, but it should be helping people do menial tasks so that really the harder tasks that require more creativity, more ingenuity, more human input really, kind of makes that more efficient, right? So it kind of automates more of the mundane administrative tasks and really augments and creates more space for creativity and jobs. I think that's the better way to use it instead of wholesale replacing people or sectors.
Do you expect that this debate around artificial intelligence, do you expect that it may rise to become a major issue this 2024 presidential election cycle? Do you expect, that, it may become an opportunity for the public to learn more about the issue? Or do you expect that there are some candidates in this election cycle that may look to weaponize the issue or use it as a wedge issue during this cycle?
I think that it really will be, I actually think, and this is really not just me thinking, but really based on the composite of research that's been done about what people in society, American society, European society, there have been a lot of comparative studies done about what they think about AI. And what's so interesting is that people really, think that AI, when it tries to blend in as a human, right, and when it isn't clearly delineated that it is a machine, people are shocked by that. People do not like interacting with the machine that they do not know or believe is a machine, right? But when people do know that it's an algorithm, it's a machine, right? It's a learning kind of, piece of technology, then I think people interact with it with a much more open mind. And so really making sure that the tools that are out there or the products of tools that are out there are clearly marked as being AI aided or AI generated is going to be really important. But I do think in this cycle, you brought up Section 230. Section 230 happens to be a liability shield. I made the comparison with the dawn of the internet in 1996. Section 230 was a part of the Communications Decency Act, which was a bill passed a part of the dawn of the internet in 1996, which pretty much allowed internet platforms to operate without being liable for what users on their platform did or said. That meant that there was a space that was economically and entrepreneurially viable, right, to put out there so that we could have means to communicate, but that we didn't blame, legally perilous things or illegal activities on the platforms themselves, but on the people that were doing the illegal things on the platform. That liability shield, it's now under question, right? It's not generated by other people. It is companies, Microsoft, Bing, Google also, and other companies as well, Meta as well. It has things in beta testing that are releasing tools that they are making, tools that they are creating that generate on their own. And what the tools that they have trained and are releasing in beta versions online that are testing on their own could do things that harm people, right? Could do things that are illegal. I think that's wholly different from the problem that the Communications Decency Act Section 230 was brought in to resolve, right? It was brought in to make people liable for the bad and illegal things that people do online, not the platform itself introducing a self-creating, automated entity that's really doing it on their own. And I really think that, that's not just what I believe. I think that's actually a really reasonable result that the Supreme Court recently came on. It passed in Google v. Gonzalez on really weighing on AI automated systems, right? And kind of repealing or doubling down on Section 230 liability. It passed the issue and kicked it down to lower courts to say, really, there really needs to be more work done at the legislative level and really in public conversation for us to decipher what the people believe is the line. And I think people in a lot of the studies about public, attitudes towards AI, people actually do know the line. I mean, 70% of people in some studies really show caution and really want to know where the company or the people end and the machine begins. And I think that's really going to be where we start building a bench line of what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable.
Yeah. So speaking of, creating a bench line, speaking of platforms, I know you've had a chance to sort of play around with OpenAI as a platform, to sort of kick the tires and check it out and see like what's real, is it worth the hype, what's going on. In our remaining minutes before we go to break, I want to ask you this: what are your top 3 insights that you would share after sort of playing around with OpenAI and testing out its capabilities? And if you could sort of tailor your top 3 insights to some of the biggest misconceptions around OpenAI and ChatGPT and all that.
Sure. Number 1, it must be interactive, right? I think people, when they start, they ask, kind of simple questions to ChatGPT, for example, and it generates really complex answers. But it's really like continuing. You have to train the machine to give you the outputs that you want, right? And so it really is an interactive process. I mean, now there are whole career fields dedicated to this, right? AI whisperers right now is a big career field where people are getting paid to just talk to chatbots and really teach it how to respond to you. So that's number 1, that it really is an iterative process. I think number 2, things like ChatGPT, text to visual kind of arts and other things, they should be used to augment human endeavor, maybe to facilitate administrative tasks. It's really something that you use to maybe get your ideas out and explain it in ways that are commonly communicable, because, and this is number 3, what ChatGPT and other AI tools do, it gives you human-like responses, right? It's not independently thinking or generating really on its own. It's pulling from things that exist already in the ethos and giving it to you. That's the fear, right, about copyright, is that in fact, it's just copying what other people are thinking and doing online, but not giving them credit. I'll add a fourth thing: be very careful using it to replace the common things that you do or that you submit for a job or school, because it can plagiarize and doesn't really source things well. So really use it as a tool to enhance human endeavor, not to replace human endeavor.
You're listening to A. Prince Albert III, social entrepreneur, tech and policy expert, particularly when it comes to civil and human rights. He is schooling us on artificial intelligence, and we are here for it. We're going to jump into some of today's headlines when we come forward. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
Tell me of the boys and girls who are young, gifted, and black.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
And that's a fact.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest spot. Shot with a rest spot. Shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4, only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580,
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time. I'm Nicordelai Corte in real time. Sitting here with A. Prince Albert III, social entrepreneur and tech and policy expert. We're sitting here in real time, having a good old time, talking through some of today's headlines. That first half of the show was devoted to artificial intelligence, really all things AI sort of bubbling up in the news. And so be sure to catch that again if you missed it. But we want to get into some of the other headlines in the news. I want to start with the governor of your home state, Prince. Your home state of Florida. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he previewed more of his 2024 pitch just Monday night with a new emphasis on the next president's ability to push the Supreme Court further to the right, calling for new justices in the mold of Clarence Thomas and improvements to others such as Chief Justice John Roberts, a Republican appointee who has sometimes sided with the court's liberal wing. And so what do you make of Governor Ron DeSantis on the eve of his expected announcement, his announced run for president, for the Republican nomination for president? What do you make of his talking about pushing the court even further to the right? That may help him during a Republican primary. I'm not sure what that gets you in a general election if you make it that far.
Sure. I mean, let's just look at his premise, right? In Florida, he has made Florida a petri dish of this new post-Trump conservatism, right? Trying all of the things that this pro-Trumpian conservative movement have wanted, right? And really seeing whether it can work and pass. So Florida really has become the ground for the litmus test of this new, sophistically intolerant, right, conservative wing of politics. It makes sense for him to want, right, as president, he's making the statement that if and when he makes it, quote unquote, that he will kind of draft and tap people that are in line with Clarence Thomas, even further right, toward kind of those extreme views of conservatism. What's very interesting in particular about Clarence Thomas is he rests now in a myriad of kind of moral and ethical crises, right? In terms of his legacy, his ethics on the court, his ex parte communications with people, and his relationships with his wife and in the movements that are political when the branch is supposed to be apolitical. So very interesting that DeSantis is trying to parse, right, Clarence Thomas's political view, but really trying to impossibly divorce it from the clearly ethical and moral imperils that this figure is dealing with on the court. And it could be kind of read to say, we don't care about the morals of the court so long as we get the result that we want that pushes forward the movement. We're willing to turn a blind eye to any kind of impropriety and say yes to anyone that wants the movement. And kind of when you put announcements out there like that, you're really going to imperil the apolitical branch of our political system. And I do believe, it's evident people have done polls, right, of what Americans think about, the judiciary branch. A lot of people feel that it lags behind, it's out of touch, that it's ruling in ways that are kind of ajar and maybe backwards or sideways of what the mainstream most Americans want out of the court. It kicks, the ball away when it needs to make important decisions using, certain doctrines like political question doctrine, where the court will not decide on something that the legislative should be really legislating on. There are other kind of, doctrines that the court uses to kind of punt on things and not answer questions that people want questions answered to, and also kind of takes up issues and decides them in very kind of unsettling and confusing ways that people really don't understand. So I think it's a really interesting question that he causes us to ask by saying he wants more people like him.
Yeah, and I've got to ask you, so what does it mean, the fact that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who, has made, his war against wokeness, sort of his signature brand, what does it say that the same governor, that, has been against sort of teaching Black history in curriculum in Florida? I was certainly opposed to, Black Lives Matter and a lot of Black authors that we grew up reading in school. Toni Morrison, for example, opposed to having folks like her as a part of the curriculum in the AP African American Studies course in Florida. This is somebody that, has been definitely for book bans of authors of note and emerging authors. And so what does it say that he wants a more extreme Supreme Court made in the mold of this Black man, Justice Clarence Thomas? What does it say about him? What does it say about his politics? And what does it say about Justice Thomas?
I'm going to answer that question differently because I think, but I'm certainly going to address its essence. As a Black person living in Gullah Geechee and Black communities in Florida, what do our communities think of, right, living in a place that is denying its existence the queer people that live among us, right, living in a place that denies their existence and their ability to live freely, go to school, grow up, get the health care that they need. It is very sad. It is very sad. And I think that, it's a question that you ask about, imperiling Black existence in one hand with bills and laws, and then wanting to raise up a Black man who really doesn't necessarily represent, right, the Black experience. I think it's very interesting. And I am, as people in my community are, quite confused, dismayed, and disappointed, right? Really disgusted in that kind of leadership that really you would want us as Black people to live in a society and contribute to it in a place where you want to deny our very existence and our need to express ourselves and really share our history, that we've always participated in the democratic process, right? In the democracy making, in the republic making that we have in this country, especially in the state of Florida. And really to live in a time where that existence is being challenged and really, questioned is disappointing. It's sad, but I do not think that such beliefs will really operate. I don't think they're really going to gain him, Governor DeSantis, any kind of success in a general election, because there is a staunch Black electorate, a staunch Black voting bloc, as well as others, right, who are of different backgrounds, who really empathize and sympathize with Black experiences, migrant experiences, minority experiences, and poor people's experiences, right, that are really kind of scratching their heads about, will this new form of republicanism work? And I think it's clear that any kind of political belief system that displaces and marginalizes people will not work in this country.
When we come forward more with A. Prince Albert III, I'm going to ask him about Republican donor Harlan Crow, also known as Justice Thomas's BFF. Well, maybe. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black. Your Black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar. Shot with a rest bar. Shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery. You got to have vision. You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody. That's right. Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig? KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time. I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte filling in for Areva, and I'm joined with A. Prince Albert III. He's a social entrepreneur, and he's a tech and policy expert steeped in civil and human rights. We've been talking about your favorite Supreme Court Justice, Justice Clarence Thomas. One headline that also caught my attention, Prince, and this is also related to Justice Thomas, a lawyer for Republican donor Harlan Crow has told Senate Judiciary Democrats that the billionaire businessman will not provide them with information about his relationship with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. How dismaying is this? I mean, a lot of us sort of, read this headline and we think, okay, water is wet. We're not surprised that Harlan Crow ain't talking to nobody about his relationship with Clarence Thomas. But this is just sort of the latest in a string of, really astonishing, ethical breaches, ethical dilemmas, not just for Supreme Court Justice Thomas, but for the Supreme Court itself.
Absolutely. I mean, when I see a headline like that, I am thinking this is par for the course. In the last 18 months of high-profile political people, even elected officials, defying subpoenas, right? A subpoena is when a court makes you come under the threat of jail time to give testimony that is important in the rendering of justice, right? You know information that the court needs to make a decision and to really do the project of justice, but you intentionally withhold it. The result of that should be jail time. But the fact that it has not been means that this is just another instance in which, right, someone will defy the courts, defy the justice system to help a Supreme Court justice escape justice. It really is a puzzling quandary, but we shall see what happens.
So when it comes to reforming the Supreme Court, we know that candidate Biden was asked if he would support expanding the Supreme Court. He did not come out in support of expanding the Supreme Court, whereas then candidates Elizabeth Warren and Pete Buttigieg were among the folks that did support expansion of the court in some way, shape, or form. Although President Biden has appointed a commission to develop a set of recommendations on all sorts of different reforms to the judiciary, period. So not so narrowly focused on the Supreme Court, but the judiciary at large. Is President Biden and Senate Democrats, are they moving too slow on this question of expanding the court? Is there still time to save the court from itself?
I want to balance here really what legal scholars and people are feeling, right? The court has been expanded at various junctions of its past, right? About 80 years ago was the last expansion, but has stayed stable since then, right? There's been an attempt at a sense of stability, that there would always be one part of the court, one half of the court, right, that was liberal leaning, another half of the court that was more conservative, and that even though there might be one or two on the other side, that there would be issues that would galvanize the court, right? There have been 9-0 decisions, right? There really have been instances of just really unison about what the American project should and should not allow via the courts, per the courts. Really, the will to keep the court stable is one thing, but now people are saying that it is so skewed in one direction, that the judges are so young and will be there for so long, right? That should we think about adding people? But there are other reforms that can be done, and I'm not discounting that one, right? But really, we think about the issues that the court decides are decided by lower courts that frame the issues, right? That take certain witnesses, that really kind of like interact with the rules in a very rubber meets the road way to decide how the issue is framed and ultimately resolved, right, by the Supreme Court. And so at lower levels of the rung, there may be things that we can do to really reform the court and make it more equal. I will say this, though, the question about should there be a uniform rule book of ethics, right, and morality that really should be allowed by the court, what activities should and should not be allowed other than high misdemeanors and really vague language in the Constitution, that should be fleshed out, that needs to be fleshed out. And I hope that this commission is doing that work as well. And if that commission puts out such a rule guide of what Supreme Court justices should and should not do with its, results and, ways of resolving those issues, we need to recognize that that rule book would not apply to things that have already happened, right? There's something called no ex post facto laws or rules, right? You can't make laws or rules and apply them to past crimes, right? So that would only be forward looking, and really the damage that has been done to the judiciary it's kind of been done, but the ways that it can start being remediated really is a wholesome set of rules for the court and for its judges.
In our remaining moments with you, Prince, I want to ask you what gives you hope. Because we've talked about a lot of heavy headlines. I mean, when it comes to artificial intelligence, there are a lot of people out there feeling a lot of anxiety still, about the advent of this new technology and what it might mean for them, what it might mean for their jobs, what it might mean for their families and their future. Also, we talked a lot about your favorite governor, Governor Ron DeSantis, and on the eve of his expected announced run for the Republican nomination for president. There's not a lot that comes out of Florida these days. It doesn't make people a little uneasy. And of course, talking about, the Supreme Court and the credibility, and not just Supreme Court Justice Thomas, but, our courts at large, given, the consequential issues that are pending before the court. So there's a lot of heaviness in the headlines. In our remaining minutes, can you give our listeners a sense of what gives you hope about the future?
Sure. What gives me hope is really people's anxiety, their disquiet, right? Their disturbance with the status quo. There is a unison of questions about AI, right, that I'm very comforted by, right? The fact that people are seeing it, people get it, and people don't like it, and there's friction. We're not just taking the tools that big tech is creating for us and just consuming them kind of unquestioningly. We are really asking those questions, wanting answers, in this latest jump to totally autonomous artificial intelligence tools really is bothering people. That gives me hope that humans will still have a place and will still push back, against the corporate entities that are kind of giving us products, to say what they want and don't want from products. I think what also gives me hope about the political landscape, whether it is in Florida or outside of Florida, is that, for the first time, the women's movements, queer movements, migrant movements are really coming together and really standing together for the first time, maybe ever, or at least since the civil rights fights of the 60s and perhaps 70s. So there is hope that really perhaps this group of common enemies or common challenges really is galvanizing people together. And I do think we're not just, questioning the status quo and expressing anxiety or distaste for what is now, but that will be the beginning of what we want to see in the place of it, building an alternative future together. And that energizes me. People being concerned about these issues really, really does give me hope because they want answers.
Well, our thanks to you for your optimism. You always bring a sense of optimism to the conversations that we have, and especially in these, incredibly challenging times. I mean, on one hand, there's so much disruption that's happening in industry that is creating opportunity for our people. But with great opportunity can sometimes come great displacement of opportunity for our people as well. And so thanks for hanging with us and helping us to connect the dots and, make it make sense, because there's a lot out there swirling. And let our listeners know, where can they go to follow you, to track you, to, continue to engage with you in the work that you're doing?
Sure. I'm most active on LinkedIn, A. Prince Albert III on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter as well, A. Prince Albert #3 on Twitter. So please follow me. I'd love to continue the conversation. Dr. Corte, KBLA, thank you for having me. Always enjoy talking about these tough issues.
Well, we always enjoy having you on. It takes a village to produce Areva Martin in real time. Our thanks to the entire team. Areva Martin will be back with you all tomorrow. But thank you for letting me hang. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte. Please be sure to check me out on A More Perfect Union right here on KBLA Talk 1580 every Sunday on the 10s. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward. Thanks for listening.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.